Denise, kindly close your mic. Please respond, Denise. Thank you.
Doc.
Go.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you this morning? I know you've been traveling from west, north, east, and south, and you've had a chance to recalibrate and to refresh yourself by way of the restroom or the refreshment that has been provided for you on the third floor. Right, we are about to begin this session. And I would like to invite Mr. Maxwell, Carol Maxwell, of the North Community College to visit the floor.
Pleasant morning, colleagues. I should work for us as workers in the vineyard. This vineyard is vineyard of education. I will read for you from a popular scripture. This verse is taken from Philippians 4:13, and I know that we can all recite it. It reads, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And if I should extend it to us this morning, we can say we can do all things through Christ who gives us strength. I know that oftentimes when persons recite the scripture, it is a case where they might not be confident. So I'm going to even use another scripture to concretize the first one that I read from Philippians 4:13. And it is coming from Philippians 1:6 as well. it reads, being confident of this very thing, that he which hath begun a good work with us perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. And we're simply saying here, what scripture is saying to us is that the Lord who started that good work in us. And this good work, I can put it in perspective to this JTA Tertiary Committee, which is looking at this JTC bill, right? Be confident knowing that the good Lord who has started working within us, he will bring it to that day of completion. I want you to assist me in singing just a verse from the song.
You all assist me in singing songs. I'm so blessed. My soul is at rest. Oh, no. I give you thanks for this. Most righteous and eternal Father, here we are in your presence one more time, the Almighty God, telling you thanks, dear Heavenly Father, for the grand opportunity of life, for this grand opportunity, dear Heavenly Father, so that we can be gathered within this forum, the Almighty God, to discuss pertinent issues for the furtherance of this work that is in front of us, the Almighty God. I pray, dear Heavenly Father, that you may touch our mental faculties, dear Heavenly Father. I pray, dear Heavenly Father, that each point that will be discussed, dear Almighty God, you will be in the midst. And dear Heavenly Father, whatsoever is said and done here today, dear Almighty God, you will get glory from it, and we will leave here today, dear Almighty God, saying that it was good for us to be in this session today. Bless each and every one. Bless the presenters, dear Heavenly Father. Give them the right words, dear Almighty God, to articulate the points so that all who are concerned will get clear understanding. Bless us now as I tell you thanks in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maxwell. Ladies and gentlemen, this session that you're in, whether in person or online, it has been long coming. It's a session that I know many of you have been anticipating, wondering where you are as it concerns your work as teachers in the tertiary sector of our country and members of the Jamaica Teachers Association. And we remind us all that the Jamaica Teachers Association represents all of us. And it is incumbent upon all of us to make our voices heard and show that interest when you are called upon. So it is on that merit that I welcome you all, those who are in person and those who are online. Let me greet you, Mr. President Leighton Johnson, our Secretary General, Dr. Mark Nicely, our Servicing Officer, Dr. Margaret Chin, the Assistant Secretary General for Professional Services, committee members Juna Martin, Verona Williams, Sherian Mercy, Dean Palmer, and in absentia, Tisha Martin. Welcome to the panelists and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, participants online, and welcome you this morning to this Jamaica Teachers Association Tertiary Committee-led tertiary education function under the theme Prioritizing Education, Preparing a Modern Workforce. It is with that in mind that we have a program lined up for you like no other. And so this morning, with the reminder that education is really a cycle, we are reminded that without the pre-primary, primary, secondary, then there is no tertiary. But then a member of my staff challenged me the other day to say with AI, hmm, many persons will no longer see the need for tertiary education. But that is something that we all are going to be challenged with. We all are beginning to, and I know my president has spoken on many forums to say, we need not fear. There will always be need for someone to be behind those who think that AI is the answer. This morning, we recognize, and you're gathered here, celebrating with us the 60 years that the Jamaica Teachers Association has been in existence. We stand on the shoulders of many others. JTA just didn't happen overnight. We're a stalwart in unionism, but even as we seek to eke out our living and the best conditions for all of us, we want to prepare you as well for what you will bring to the tertiary landscape. So this morning, you have a a good lineup, and I will share that with you when the time comes. So at this time, I want to welcome you. Those online, I'm going to ask you not to just log in and show a presence, but to stay in the session with us. We invite you at the appropriate time to place your questions as they relate to the presentations that will be made this morning. So, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you, and I know that we will have a fruitful day. Let me invite those persons who are coming in person to sit to the front and center so that you will be captured within history as being a part of our session. If you sit on the wings, we may not see you at all, and we want to remember that you were with us when we review our on our platform. And I'm sure that you would want your colleagues to see that you're representing them well. Thank you to the institutions who are represented here. We hope that you will take good notes and to take back to share with your colleagues when you go. At this time, I will invite our Secretary General, Dr. Mark Nicely, to greet you. I also want to remind us in here that we are being streamed live as well. So whatever feedback you hear is consequent of the fact that we're feeding, through Zoom. Thank you so much.
Morning, everyone. Can we give our chairman a hand, please? That's one of the things when you're streaming. You have to give a hand every now and again. The person. Let me acknowledge our chairman for today's proceedings, and certainly chairman of the Tertiary Committee of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Mrs. Leslie Thomas. I want to acknowledge the servicing officer, administrative servicing officer, Dr. Margaret Ching. I want to acknowledge our national president, Mr. Leighton Johnson, and I am certain that our president-elect, Mr. Mark Smith, is on board virtually. I want to acknowledge him as well. And our immediate past president, Mrs. Rosanna Harrison, I believe that she too is on board online, and I want to acknowledge her. I want to acknowledge all the, I was waiting for a kind of roll call, but I do see many faces spanning a wide, number of our institutions. So I know that we are well represented, certainly in terms of the number of institutions we have in this country on the tertiary sector. And I want to just acknowledge you. I won't start the call name, but I want to acknowledge you and express my own appreciation for your level of cooperation and participation today. I believe, or it is very clear, abundantly clear, that this forum is a necessary forum. It is timely, relevant, and it demonstrates the continued responsiveness of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Leslie said that we have a good lineup. That is what I call the most modest understatement, because this is a stellar, high class, outstanding, and you could just keep going lineup of individuals. And I am extremely proud of the committee for putting this activity on and for ensuring that the conference here did not end with this activity not ending. I just want to say that, and I think Leslie mentioned it, the tertiary sector is of significant importance. I think you are the ones who do the end product. To go out into the system, the end product that will determine quality human citizens of Jamaica, and you are doing the end products that are going to become globalized. And you're actually marketing agents for Jamaica in terms of the students that we put out into our local, regional, and international space. So it's a very important sector. The JTA acknowledges that, values that, and we will continue to work with you to ensure that the objective of our president will no doubt be achieved. So I congratulate you for what you have been doing tirelessly, consistently, and the level of commitment and stick-to-itiveness that you have demonstrated over many years, and for producing me, all of us sitting here, and all the quality human products of Jamaica that have gone abroad. Thank you very much. Every blessing for today.
Thank you, Dr. Nancy. It was remiss of me in my welcome not to have acknowledged the members of the JTA staff in the room outside of those I already recognized. So welcome to Mr. Leon Nash, who is monitoring and ably navigating between the recording and the Zoom monitoring to close the mics of those of us who have forgotten to do so when we logged on. I'd like to also acknowledge Mr. Morrison, who has set this up for us, and for Mrs. Gordon, who has done quite a bit of a legwork in allowing us to be here gathered this morning. So I welcome you all to this session as well. Before I invite the president to greet you, let me acknowledge those persons attending from St. Joseph's Teachers College. Here's the roll call. St. Joseph's Teachers College, welcome to you. Portmore Community College, you're here. Lord man, thank you for this. Thank you. Some sharp Teachers College from down west. Long as one thing of Bay Community College. Shortwood, let me hear for the ladies from Shortwood. Bethlehem
is here online. Shortwood is here and online.
Okay, you're online. Okay. VTDI.
Shortwood is here and online.
Is also online.
Thank you for joining online. Church Teachers College.
Shortwood is online.
Online. Case. Not hearing Case in the room or online. Case is online.
Case is online.
Wonderful to have you.
Case is here.
College.
Bethlehem Moravian is online.
Present.
Bethlehem Moravian is online.
Yes, we are. There are a couple of us here.
Monique. Welcome. And you all know that I serve at the Knox Community College. Let me hear it for you. Thank you so much. Dr. Wilson, you arrived after the welcome was done, but let me welcome Dr. Donna Wilson, who is the Executive Director of the Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica. welcome, and we anticipate what we will hear from you as the session continues. Thank you for coming. Mr. President, may I invite you, sir, to greet.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Leslie Thomas, Chair of the Tertiary Committee of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Dr. Mark Nicely, Secretary General. Dr. Margaret Chin, Assistant Secretary General. Other members of staff of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Colleagues from the tertiary sector, both in the conference room and those online. Good morning. Morning. Good morning, everybody. Morning. The Jamaica Teachers Association continues to demonstrate leadership in promoting professional development for our members that will provide them with cutting-edge methods in ensuring that as a sector, we continue to produce individuals who will make that positive contribution to our society and to the global space of which we all interact. This forum, ladies and gentlemen, was deliberately crafted with you in mind, simply because the Jamaica Teachers Association aims to reposition itself as that benchmark in unionism and professional development. On one hand, there are those who consider the Jamaica Teachers Association not being relevant to the concerns of the tertiary sector. It's against that background why we felt it necessary, urgent, and relevant to debunk that myth and to ensure that the relationship between our members at this level continues to be fueled by a synergy that is necessary for the growth of our country. As a sector, you polish what comes from the secondary sector, producing men and women who go into the world of work to be productive citizens. Therefore, you must be in touch with the dynamics of this global space in which we work. We must ensure that each institution at this level positions itself to provide opportunities for students who engage learning at the higher level to be equipped with the necessary skills and competencies to thrive in a modern world. Ladies and gentlemen, this sector is crucial to prioritizing what needs to happen for our nation to grow economically, socially, and in other aspects as we provide interest in fields that will ensure as a society our students deliver high quality professional service. A modern workforce is essential to any society. And what the tertiary sector is charged with doing is to ensure that there is alignment with the curriculum that is in circulation with the job market needs, incorporating innovative teaching technologies and methods improving accessibility, and investing in professional development for our educators, so that at the end, there can be a level of comfort and confidence in the product that comes from our institutions. For too long, there has been a rhetoric indicating that our nation is not producing the levels of skilled persons or individuals to take hold of opportunities for growth and development in our country. I hereby challenge our sector, the tertiary sector, to ensure that as you package your offerings, it is characterized by technological innovations. You are rather providing our students, your clients, with the opportunities to research, to be engaged in markets that will drive success, and in the end, move away from that notion that our sector is not producing the quality students and individuals for the market. The Jamaica Teachers Association continues to identify opportunities such as these to add to the process of ensuring we continue to secure a bright future for our country. Thank you for your interest in this forum. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for continuing to believe in what the Jamaica Teachers Association stands for. We are a union first, but we have a major pillar of professional development, and that is what we are doing here today. Enjoy the proceedings, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to demonstrate leadership in this regard in promoting tertiary education and advancing our country. Thank you.
I am a proud educator because President Lyndon Johnson happens to be my student. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, your program is with you. And the first session to be led or a presenter should have been, okay, let me review. Today you have a lineup, a stellar lineup of presenters in what should have been Winsome Gordon, Dr. Damian Black. Haven't seen Dr. Black in the room as yet. I anticipate he's on his way. Dr. Donna Powell Wilson, Dr. Tamika Benjamin, I welcome you. Notice that you walked in and we are salivating, awaiting your presentation. Yes. Mrs. Althea Heron, we welcome her online, and our own Mr. Dean Palmer. So we have a stellar lineup this morning. However, unfortunately, Dr. Winsome Gordon is unable to be with us this morning. Life happens, and this is one of them. And so, being the educators we are, we know how to pivot. As a consequence of which, the tertiary committee stands on research done by the committee, not necessarily in the year in which we're serving, but a presentation, a research that was done in the last conference year, which will show us some things that may alarm us as it concerns education in the tertiary sector. That is going to be led by the team Sherry and Mercy, supported by Dean Palmer and Dr. Junior Martin. He smiles at me from the back, but I welcome you here, sir, as a supporter of the team to help to clarify whatever concerns that may arise from this presentation, which incidentally will act as a precursor for the panel discussion to come. And I know you anxiously await that. So at this point, I will welcome Sherry and Mercy. Sherry and Mercy happens to be a member of the Tertiary Committee, who was the chairman of the committee in the last conference year, supported by Mr. Martin. Professor Martin, Professor Dr. Martin. I like to give him his entire title. And one other team member is not here who was a part of that team last year. Sandra is here, and Julie Robertson in her absence. So I invite the team now to pivot and to come to make that presentation, supported by all the members who are part of the committee then to make the presentation. Thank you for, filling in at this junction. So I have an apology coming in from past president and trustee, Dr. Gab Anderson. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So as you have heard, we are pivoting, and so to get the session started, we will just show you an overview of the tertiary sector that we did in the last conference year. With me, I am Sharon Mercy. With me, I have Mr. Dean Palmer, who was a member of the committee and still is a member of the committee. Ms. Sandra Hunter, she was part of the team last year. And there's Dr. Martin. So we will show you what we did. And as was said, it should trigger some conversation and lead us good into the discussion ahead. So I will start and then others will. Everybody see my screen?
Yes.
So the mandate was to review and advise the JTA on the role and function of the Jamaica Tertiary Commission and the Joint Board of Teacher Education and the University of the West Indies to disaggregate and isolate overlaps that may exist to ensure smoother operation within teacher training institutions. But as you will see when we go through the presentation, it will not just center on teacher training institutions, but on public higher education institutions. So the Teachers Colleges of Jamaica, definitely they do teacher training. We have some community colleges that do offer teacher training. So first, I think NAPS is one of them. We have the Vocational Training Development Institute. A lot of us did our postgraduate at a VTDI center, right? The University of the West Indies and the University of Technology. So all of these entities here offer teacher training, right? So firstly, we try to define the sector. We had some definition from UCJ 2019 newsletter that they said that tertiary education is the third stage or level in the education system following the completion of secondary education. And then we have another term going around, higher education, and that represents the third level or stage of education that occurs after the completion of secondary education.
So you can start wondering if what is happening in the high schools now would form tertiary. And then you wonder now if tertiary can start at post, what, 11th grade? That's what they're doing now, right? So they're going into some programs afterward and they're staying at the high school. How do we actually categorize that? How do we capture those students? Those institutions, they're high schools and they're offering post-secondary programs. So something to think about. So there are a few pieces of legislation currently that relate to tertiary, and these include Education Act 1980. It makes very few references to the sector. So those of us who use the act, you'll notice sometimes we hear it's not for tertiary, it's for primary school, it's for high school. You know, so sometimes we don't know if it's applicable, right? And then we have the different institutions around that try to define us. So as I said, we're still trying to define ourselves. And when we get into the forum, we will hear if that has changed since that time. Because we were still wondering, how do we really say, what is tertiary in Jamaica? How do we capture that? Something to think about. So the landscape, we have several entities, and you will notice that the oldest one is the JBTE, 1965. And then we evolved, added more entities. And the latest one is JTEC, which, well, 2011 that came about. The community colleges got an amendment to their act in 2021. They weren't explicitly given the right to offer degrees, and that was amended in 2021. And that amendment allowed for the previous degrees to hold, because then you would wonder then all those degrees before that time, are they valid? But the law actually, when they amended it, they said, okay, those that were given, they're fine. But no, they are legitimately, based on law, allowed to offer degrees. That happened in 2021. So the Ministry of Education has a tertiary unit. We're going to look at the tertiary sector now and all the entities. So the unit, based on literature, is supposed to monitor and support the work of public tertiary institutions. It is supposed to supervise the sector and ensure that programs offered respond to the training and development needs of the economy. And the tertiary unit is supposed to ensure there's adequate staffing at public tertiary institutions. Okay. Then we go to the UCJ, and all of these entities are under the Ministry of Education. The UCJ mandate to increase the availability of university level training in Jamaica, right, through accreditation of institutions, courses, and programs. So the UCJ can accredit the institutions, they can accredit courses, and they can accredit programs. Most of us go for program accreditation with the UCJ. I don't know if you've ever gone up for institutional from the UCJ itself. We have? Yeah. Great. All right, so to register all institutions offering tertiary education, so the UCJ had this. So I said this was done last year. So part of the UCJ's mandate was to register all institutions offering tertiary education and to ensure that there are certain minimum standards are met, right? And pretty much to coordinate the activities of the Joint Committee for Tertiary Education. Sounds a bit wide, right? Bear these roles in mind, because remember we're looking at where they overlap and where we have gaps. So JCTE, another entity from the Ministry of Education and Youth. It is a special advisory committee. Okay? And the University Council of Jamaica hosted JCT Secretariat. Now, this entity to promote tertiary education and training, I think this one is on a hold right now, based on latest news and ideas. We have not heard much about this branch since the last news item about some mishap. And the JCTE was to make recommendations to the minister and to promote systematic and integrated planning of tertiary education and provide a mechanism for member institutions to address common issues. So the word or the phrase member institution suggests that not because you are a tertiary institution, you will automatically become a member. It appears that there was a process to become a member. Not sure. Another entity is the CCCJ. Now, the CCCJ is supposed to supervise community colleges, prescribe conditions under which people may be admitted, students. So that autonomy is not so much within the institution itself. The CCCJ stipulates what we can accept, what is the acceptable norm to enter a program, not the college itself. The CCCJ should consider, recommend, and approve curricula. They should determine the conditions for holding exams, and they have the power to award degrees since 2021, and advise the education minister on policy and educational matters relating to the colleges. So several entities are advising the minister, if you notice. Another entity is the JTC, and it was established as part of the education transformation strategy to improve quality of and coverage of education nationwide. So it came out of a task force report in 2004, and the body is responsible for regulating the teaching profession, building and maintaining competencies of teachers, and raising the public profile of the profession as a change agent to societal reform and development. They're supposed to implement systems for assessing teacher performance and for measuring the quality and levels of achievement in the profession, following basic standards agreed upon by teachers' union and other organizations. So that part is involved because we want to bring to remembrance that whatever the JTC is doing, it is supposed to somewhat, the standards that are going to be put forward must be agreed upon by the teachers' union and other organizations. What we see happening most of the time is there's a flare up in the newspaper and we say, oh, this is happening. I don't know if the conversations are not had at the table so that we don't have something coming out and then the JTA is saying, oh, we don't agree with that. The argument is happening in public instead of in private. So that is something I wonder if this part where we must have agreed standard, if we are taking it seriously enough to have that conversation as we build. Either the JTC is doing the bill or the changes and then it's shocking the system. It should not be a shock. It should be something that it was worked out together. So we should not be having these kind of clashes in the public domain. Something to think about. So the bill seeks to establish a teaching council and define the functions. The bill wants to repeal the functions of the Teacher Service Commission relating to registration, discipline, and assessment to qualification of teachers, and to repeal certain provisions of the education regulations of 1980. The another entity of the ministry is the JBTE, which is just to guarantee the quality of teacher education in Western Commonwealth Caribbean, and the Joint Board certifies teachers trained at the undergraduate level in colleges in the Bahamas and Jamaica. Another entity, Hartshorn. The VTDI is another tertiary institution in Jamaica. It is registered with the UCJ to train and certify students and workmen at all levels and grades. Since 1990, the VTDI has been managed by Hartshorn and has been described as the tertiary arm of the agency. So VTDI is tertiary managed by Hart. But I think that has changed recently and they are now under Ministry of Education. But if you think about it, you cannot, cross eyes in your mind, right? Oh, it was before. All right, the VTDI program are accredited by the UCJ and the NCTV. So you see that originally, the BTDI programs were not being monitored as the other tertiary programs would be, because the entity that managed it, apart from the UCJ, was HART, as opposed to Ministry of Education that all the other of us would go through. JTech, and I'm going to allow my colleagues to take over soon. JTech includes the functions of JTech include to maintain an up-to-date register of local and international institutions operating in the Jamaican landscape. So we saw that the UCJ was registering institutions, right? But the JTech is also registering, but the JTech registration is a bit wider because it's not just local, but any school that is offering tertiary degree, tertiary education, doesn't have to be Ministry of Education. Once you're operating here, the JTech will have the jurisdiction to come in and check on you, and you have to be registered here to operate. So that it seems as if the UCJ will handle local cases and JTech will have both local and international. That's how it appears. Okay, so great. So some of these happened since 2023. Great. So we sent this presentation out, and I know there was discussion on it. So probably some of the changes are emanating from here. To receive and investigate complaints and queries regarding higher education, to ensure institutions have appropriate student services as a condition of operating, and to conduct ongoing education to build awareness of the functioning of the sector. Then there's a higher education policy that needs to be developed. At the time, we were questioning which entity was assigned the duty to do this. Was it JTech? Was it UCJ? Was it the JTC? How is the higher education policy different from the JTC bill? Is the JTC bill going to cover the entire sector? We were just saying how the current education regulation doesn't really speak much to tertiary. So we were wondering if the JTC bill will be so all-inclusive to cover all the sectors appropriately and adequately. So the policy was to streamline the governance and oversight of the sector, which is the higher education policy, and to outline strategies and framework for funding and the framework for the autonomy of public higher education institutions. So we were discussing the matter of institutional accreditation and registration. So with JTech, it is going to be mandatory that all institutions are registered. But the UCJ at the time, it appears that for registration and accreditation, can a program go on without accreditation to the detriment of the school? Probably, but could it go on? If the school is registered, that's what I mean. So what if a school is registered, but default on carrying out the accreditation process, the expired program? So the students are not aware about this expiration thing and join program still. How does this work? Would the JTech register school that continue to have expired programs, stuff like that? This is a conversation. So that's what this is about. I think the discussion today will clarify some of these. Registration of academic staff. So the JTC asks that, well, that is standard. We should all be registered. But how many of you try to go on to JTC website to register? Anybody here registered?
Yes, miss.
Have you? Have you registered?
Yes.
Partially registered. I'm
There's a
partially
challenge.
registered, but I have a certificate. How does that work? I had to click unemployed because currently in the system there's no tertiary school listed. So to go to the next step, you have to hit unemployed. Then you get to complete the thing, and then yes, because you can't move on if you don't click a school. But if your school is not there, right? You're unemployed. So I am registered, but the system still have me as unemployed. So the question is, do tertiary persons then need to be registered under the JTC umbrella, or is the higher education policy or bill that is coming out covering tertiary alone? I don't know. Because I thought it's been a while since we have not been listed. I thought by now we would be there, but we're still not on the list. So it's something. But that's why I said those who registered selected unemployed. I have a few colleagues who did the same thing. So we have our certificate. All right. Performance management for academic staff. JTC or JTEC or both. UCJ or hard. Trust, well, no. VTDI is moved, so that should be safe now. And how involved is the JTBE, teachers colleges? So some entities are under the ministry, others under hard. Well, the VTDI is moved over. Okay. But the joint board is not under the Ministry of Education. So some gaps, we don't have key performance indicators in the sector. Despite the various agencies that are responsible for monitoring and supervising, we don't have a guide to say this is how it is done. I think it is being formalized now because the JTEC, although it's operating, doing some registration, it's still not yet legal fully. So we do it to practice. Those schools that have started the registration, they're just practicing, but it's not yet mandated. Right? There's no conclusive definition of the sector. I don't know if we have arrived at a definition as yet. Absence of long term concerns. So there are certain concerns, and I don't want to get into it now. Some of them include, for example, the getting of your certificate after finishing your salary. How your salary is kind of put in the back for most teachers until you can produce the certificate. And sometimes the certificate is delayed. It's not your choice. You finish, but something is happening. So some of these issues are still not addressed. And which entity will develop the higher education policy? I think is the JTEC. I'm not sure if it's just JTEC alone. Ministry of Education. That's why which unit tertiary. All right, so the overlap. We have accreditation and registration by UCJ and JTEC. Well, you said that UCJ is no longer doing registration. Several entities are monitoring. Several entities are doing the promotion, which is, I think, is good. There are appeals tribunal and the legislation and governance in terms of JTC, JTEC, the higher education policy. How will we use all of these? Right now in this space too, we have the public sector staff orders that is being used in some institutions to address academic issues. So a lot of legislations are being used. What I find, why it disturbs us is that when something is convenient to the leader, then this is the one that we are using today. And then tomorrow, that same one that you use today, it don't use tomorrow because what the provision in this don't fit what you want to do, so you use another one. So we have that kind of thing going on. It's a bit unfair, especially when it is on the side where the teachers are asking for help on a matter. All right, so that is why we say we need to understand which one of the legislation will govern us and what, and then we cannot have conflicting information. So one piece of document says this, and the other one says that, and this they use based on convenience.
Good morning, everyone. And coming out of our last conference here, these are the recommendations that we put forward with defining the sector. And I believe that is now developed and it's been worked on. We wanted to eliminate the need of fish, now fowl, phraseology, right? Perhaps using the national qualification framework as a guide. Additionally, we want to address the ambiguities and inequities surrounding teaching hours and student lecture ratio. And I believe that the standard operating procedure that is being reviewed for the tertiary sector will address those. Also, the JTA should be more visible in the governance discussion around tertiary, meaning that we want the JTA to be in the consultation process when these policies are being formulated. Additionally, the JTA should be very integral in the overall attempt to regulate the tertiary sector. So we want to have a voice at the table, and those are the recommendations we put forward. All right, thank you for listening. Chair.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you please help me thank this team for the work they did? There's another section that they did, in terms of return on investment. And I was wondering if that would be presented this morning. But it was quite a bit of work that they did to present that. And we want to thank them for getting into the details of the matter, some of which we sometimes overlook to our own detriment. But today, we have an opportunity to ask the questions and hopefully to receive appropriate answers to them. So once again, I want to thank the team that worked on this presentation that so ably pivoted in the absence of our presenter, Dr. Gordon. And we want to wish her well wherever she is and to let her know that her slot was well taken. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your intellect and for having done this and presented to all of us. This is an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, for all of us to do researches of this nature so that we can share among ourselves and help to build our sector. Thank you so much, ladies. Because we had to pivot this morning. I must apologize. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You have to forgive me. I went to an all-girls school, so I'm accustomed to be referred to as ladies and making reference to ladies. And although I have left St. Andrew High School a couple of years now, I still maintain that. Dr. Powell wants to show my age, but she's not getting there. I still look 16. Yes, thank you so much. Because we had to pivot, I moderated this session and we're checking in the chat. I don't know if we should have detained the questions until the session that will be for Dr. Martin to handle at the end. So please write your questions down. Don't trust your memory now. If you're my age, you will write it down. Or if you're able to, if you're online, please place them in the chat and we will address them at the appropriate time. So thank you very much, team. I now invite and welcome as I invite Dr. Damian Black and to take his seat with all our esteemed invited panelists, as I also invite Mrs. Verona Morris-Williams, who will moderate this session. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Colleagues, all good morning. Good morning. Colleagues, all good morning. Good morning. Yeah, man, that sounds more like it. Welcome again. And as the get more familiar with the terms and conditions, of the tertiary sector, I am praying that, when we leave here today, we'll have a clearer understanding of what it is that guides us each and every day at the tertiary level. And I just want to take this opportunity to welcome our panelists. And yes, we will make notes and, think about what is happening as they go through. So this morning we have Dr. Damian Black, Dr. Donna Powell-Wilson, Dr. Tamika Benjamin. I think our Mrs. Heron is online, and Mr. Palmer is right here with us. So as we enter this session, we will keep our hearts and minds open to receive what is that they have to offer us. So our topic at this time is governance, accreditation, and registration. Where are we now?
Mrs. Heron is online.
Yes. So as we begin, I would like to invite Dr. Damian Black to lead us off at this time. Welcome, Dr.
Everyone should go. Yes.
They're going to be sharing material or just speak. You can speaking is fine.
Okay, good morning, everyone. The referencing this presentation by the team that was up here, and I note that they sought to put in context the perspective reviews of the JTA, the members, and then certainly resulting as they did in sharing some recommendations concerning the issue. The matter of the governance and oversight of the tertiary education sector in Jamaica has been, and its reform has been on the agenda for a significant period. Certainly in its most recent vintage, it began in 2004 with the published report of the education sector transformation team that was chaired by Dr. Ray Davis. Within that report, there were significant recommendations for the tertiary sector oversight. There were two bodies that were proposed, essentially. One to treat with, as they indicated then, quality, but really and truly speaking in terms of accreditation and these matters. And then the second to look at hard issues of regulation. Coming out of that report, the then government submitted to cabinet a paper and request concerning the establishment of the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission. Accordingly, once approved, it became one of the 6 entities established under the Education Sector Transformation Program. It began its life in 2012, and it had specific remit. At the time, the decision was to do a whole host of things, namely the reform of the sector, looking at the bodies, merging and consolidating, and trying to bring under one umbrella within the context of this body that was called Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission. That phase, going from 2012 into 2017, essentially led to the development of a bill that sought to treat with
a very heavy mandate, multiple areas, multiple requirements of the entities. Within the context of that proposal was the establishment of what I would call a superstructure, within which, as I said, some of the functions of entities such as the tertiary unit, the CCCJ, I remember Dr. P, entity that would have been collapsed, and these entities would have been dissolved essentially. The recommendation was for the UCJ to be appended within the framework, but not necessarily part of in terms of the legal structure. So just allow it to continue. Our feedback and responses resulted in some significant change, and essentially we are in, as I would call it, the third phase of this mandate to reform the government structure. The data bill has been in abeyance since 2017, with the current minister's appointment as Minister of Education and Youth. The matter was revitalized and instructions were given to put the data bill back on the agenda and to ensure, among other things, that there would be the minimization of duplications in function, as was indicated in the presentation. There are some limitations, and to what extent might we overcome these. And so we have been on that journey since then. That mandate and directive was strengthened by the Holland Patterson-led Jamaica Education Transformation Commission report, which dated 2021, but released in January 2022. And one of its recommendations was the passage of the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission finalization and passage of the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission bill. I want to treat the matter of the minimization of duplication, as was indicated. I know your colleagues in the research team mentioned the issue of registration. Historically, there have been two approaches to this whole idea of registration. So, as it's the same word, the UCJ initially spoke about registration for accreditation. The idea behind registration as practiced by the Tertiary Education Commission was registration from a regulatory perspective. That is to say, if you have not met or satisfied these minimum standards, then you will not be allowed to operate. Now, critically, without the bill, there is no real legal support to sanction to do many things. And so we are in the process of final stages of settling that matter. So registration as practiced by the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission is from the regulatory perspective, still a part of the external quality assurance framework. And so we have established standards and we engage in a two-stage process of inspection and verification of what you have as an institution, if you say you're doing, and how you have committed to execute. We have, through our monitoring efforts, realized that there are approximately 147 institutions that are offering tertiary level qualifications. And when we say tertiary level qualification, we're looking at fundamental level 3 on the NCT, but I want to just make sure that that is listed. And so, which is then converted on the NPLA to level 3. So therefore, workforce qualifications. So once you are satisfying those minimum standards, then it is that we be able to engage, inspect, make a determination, and as required, issue a certificate of registration. The standards are international benchmark, and they cover a number of areas, 11 and ranging from looking at the whole matter of legal status and regulations. So an entity, public education institution, they have to have been established, operating within the aegis of the public sector framework. And I say it like that because in many instances, many of the institutions do not have legal documentation to show that they're public education institutions. Yes, we know that they get subventions, we know they get grants and so on, but in terms of the same legally. When you're a private sector body, your company's office certificate, and you have a point of view, you have a certificate which indicates. So legal status and regulation is one, philosophy, strategy, mission, that corporate and academic governance, academic programs, quality and integrity, the issue of staff, human resource requirements, we're all the way down to non-discrimination, risk management, assessment. So it covers a wide gamut. What we do is we recognize the divergence in Jamaica's tertiary education offerings, and we use a framework that sees institutions being classified in one of 4 categories. I'm going to look at the apex, the universities. Secondly, we have what is called specialized and advanced institutions. These are entities such as teachers' colleges, maybe schools of medicine, law schools. But here you may have an institution that doesn't have a broad range of funding, but is focused really on a discipline or so. So usually across the college of physical education and sports. Teachers' college, yes, but it is strictly focused area. And then thirdly, we have what we call general higher education colleges. But by the way, those institutions specialize may offer up to the highest graduate level, but they're still within that track of bachelor focus. Within the general higher education colleges, we have institutions who offer up to a bachelor's degree, And then the 4th category is where we have the most number of entities. We call them general tertiary institutions, providers and brokers. These entities would offer to the public tutorial services. Okay? They may be doing so as representatives of awarding bodies, the University of London. Could be city and guilds, it could be CXC, just or ACC, professional program. So they don't make awards, okay? But they offer tutoring services accordingly, and they invite members of the public to purchase their services and then prepare them for the external exams, which they then sit and successfully receive their awards. So we have been doing that. We have been successfully engaging that particular process. You just want a little, huh? Okay. In terms of the broad scope, certainly any questions, and Fred will be able to respond to it. But let me just say that coming out of conversation with the UCJ, we have agreed that in keeping with the decision of 2014, JTA will treat the registration of institutions, certainly the national qualifications framework of Jamaica and other matters related to qualifications. Is something that we deal with, but this is important. We are presently facilitating the Jamaica's ratification of 2 UNESCO conventions, one global and one regional being Latin America and the Caribbean, on the recognition of qualifications. And these are critical. They provide this global framework that will help us. We are also looking as well to craft a national policy that we treat what we call a national qualification system policy that will then allow for the NQFJ and other matters related to qualifications, etc., to have a grounded foundation in policy. You may have heard news reports concerning this when there's post-cabinet press briefing where our minister spoke to the matter of the primary assessment and recognition program. You know that it exists hard NSTA doing this sort of thing. Institutions, the CCCJ has it. It's there, but the standards and there is no consistency across the system, and so we have and are engaged in a program that will treat with improved regulation and guidance in terms of the practice of failure by institutions and then those who are so qualified to guide. And so we have completed the first cohort of training for PLAR advisors, and these are being presently assessed. These persons are being presently assessed, and and they will be certified. We will speak to that more in a public event in July.
They're not hearing.
Professional continuing education training program. We also engage in training practitioners, quality assurance officers, and institutions in terms of their research competence. And so, basically, this is to make a tertiary education commission. So thank you so much.
We thank you, Dr. Black, for those insights. And I'm sure we would have garnered from them and will certainly seek to ask you questions. Okay, now we invite Dr. Wilson to come to us, and we're going to ask Madam that if you need to sit, you can sit, but we are asking that you project so that our online audience can hear you. Okay, and each presenter, I should say, have 15 minutes. All right.
Good morning, colleagues. It is indeed a privilege to be amongst educators one more time. The Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica, as per its act, is empowered to do a number of things to include coordinate and supervise the work of community colleges. And that's that section of the act. Now, as was mentioned in the report earlier, the overlaps, persons have tried to confine what coordinate and supervise the work of community colleges should look like. So as it is now, the CCCG, in terms of coordination and supervision, we focus mainly on curriculum development and review, examination and assessment, and certification. We work with the tertiary unit and other agencies in the Ministry of Education, JTEC, UCJ, so that our members can offer quality education. So the CCCJ's role for the tertiary sector is more of internal quality assurance, ensuring that the curricula that are being delivered in the institution, they would have met the required standard, the examination and assessment pieces, they would have met the standard, and also the certification, just to ensure that within the sector, there is confidence in the certification that will be issued. We continue to, and because of the structure of the council, it makes access to tertiary education more affordable, one, and of course accessible. So persons can stay within their local, and there would be some assurance that the curricula that is being delivered in one community college or polytechnic, because we now have polytechnic institutions in our membership, is the same value that they are getting. So it's not that going to an institution in Kingston, you're going to receive something different as if you're going to one in St. James. Once it's the same program, we look at the quality. So that's what we do. We, as I indicated earlier, to strengthen the processes, we work closely with our sister agencies in the ministry. Right, that's it.
Thank you, Madam. That was concise, to the point,
And we thank you for that. And I know there are a number of our colleagues from the community colleges here. And I am hoping that they would have gained a new perspective, understand more of what it is that they are about and what your entity is doing for them. I now invite Dr. Benjamin to talk with us in terms of the tertiary unit at the ministry, who I think they are the overarching body for everybody else here. I would like to think so.
Good morning, everyone. Good to be with you this morning. Okay, so the tertiary unit is not the overarching body. The tertiary unit is one of the entities within the ministry that supports higher education in Jamaica. And we are particularly responsible for supervising, monitoring, and supporting publicly funded higher education institutions. So while Dr. Black would register everybody, public or private, and while Dr. Wilson will support the community colleges, the tertiary unit's work is focused on those institutions which are funded by the government of Jamaica. So that would include all of our teacher training institutions, all of our community colleges, the polytechnics, the VTDI. We also have some responsibility for the University of Technology and the Caribbean Maritime University, but from a different angle, more administrative support through the Permanent Secretary's Office. So in the case of the other institutions, the education officers who are assigned to the tertiary units are assigned to these institutions. They attend board meetings. They will do things like sit on interviews for principals and vice principals, support the appraisals for the principals and the vice principals, and provide day-to-day support for the operations of those institutions through the tertiary unit. But there are no education officers assigned to CMU UTech. And we do also provide some support administratively through the Office of the Permanent Secretary for the University of the West Indies. So in essence, we work with these institutions, but we also would have some relationship clearly with JTech. So for instance, one of our objectives for this year is to ensure that those PHEIs, as we call them, that are not currently registered with JTech go through the process. So we look to see what are some of the things that are standing in the way of them being able to complete registration. And we provide them with the support to align, to ensure that they are registered. One of our goals is that all the PHEIs should be registered with JTech. If we have a body such as JTech that's under the ministry, then our institutions should be registered if we're asking others to be registered. So that in short is the role of the tertiary unit. As our focus for this year really is on ensuring we have a deeper understanding. The unit, I'm new, I think some of the officers are new. And so we've been working this year to deepen our knowledge and understanding of the institutions, the unique issues that they are having, and trying to align the support the ministry offers to them to help them carry out their mandates more effectively. One critical outcome of some work which was started in 2022 would have been the recent approval of operating standards and guidelines for public higher education institutions, which sought to establish some standards for, I noted in the presentation, some areas that would have been, I would call them gray areas before. Things like contact hours had never really been settled. There would have been several reports generated over years. Many people know about the Sherlock report, for instance. And so the ministry has now sought, in collaboration with the principals of the colleges, to pull these documents together, it establishes a standard staffing model for all of the institutions, and we're actually now working with the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service to build out the staffing structures. So we have bolstered HR staffing, bolstered finance department staffing. We bolstered even for quality assurance. There was a post that was there before. We built that out as proposed, same for research, student services, make sure that there is personnel on staff in each of the institutions to provide support for special education, the special education needs that may exist within the context of the institution. And there are some other areas. We've established some standards as it relates to student teacher. And that, of course, will be used to assess the need to increase, well, we don't really decrease, but respond to the request for additional teaching staff, because there will now be a clear standardized basis on which we will be able to determine whether an institution needs additional staff. So that's really the role and function. We try to ensure that the institutions are operating according to established guidelines of the government of Jamaica. So that includes HR, the requirements of the FAA Act. It's our responsibility to ensure their finances are audited, that their HR procedures are aligned to the government standards and so on. So as I said, we monitor, but we also, I usually don't say monitoring without saying support, because as far as we are concerned, those things go hand in hand. We are not there to be punitive. We are there to journey with them and to support the leadership of the institution in ensuring that they effectively carry out their mandate, which is to deliver high quality programs which are responding to the needs of our sector, whether it's the teacher education sector as it relates to our college, or the broader needs of the workforce as it relates to our community college and polytechnics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Benjamin. And I am sure, we are awaiting all of those gray areas to become clearer for us so that we know exactly where we stand in a lot of instances. I am now going to invite Mrs. Heron to share with us, and she is online. And so we will have to pay attention to the.
Thank you very much. Hello, can you hear me? Are you hearing me?
You could go a little.
Are you hearing me now?
For us, because we know that you are there, but not clear.
Are you hearing me now? Hello?
No.
No? I don't understand. Hello? Hello? Not hearing? Hello?
We are hearing you, but it's low, so we are not hearing quite clearly. We are doing some adjusting.
Hello? Are you hearing now?
I'm not hearing it.
Tell us to keep going.
You can go ahead
now. Okay. First of all, I'd like to.
Are you going to be sharing screen now?
No, I don't have a presentation.
Okay. All right. You can go ahead now.
Okay.
Hold up the camera.
So thank you for inviting us to be part of this discussion, and also like to just clarify something that was mentioned earlier from the earlier presentation, that the UCJ since 2017 did not have a relationship in terms of providing oversight to the JCTE. So I just thought that I needed to clear that. Now, as you know, we are the National External Quality Assurance Agency for Higher Education, and we were established in 1987. And so as the External Quality Assurance Agency, we evaluate higher education institutions as well as their programs to determine whether they meet or exceed established standards of educational quality. And in that process, we developed the standards and guidelines. We accredit institutions and programs. We recognize qualifications, and we or assess the credentials or qualifications. We do research, as well as we do have a communications and public education agenda. The UCJ promotes and advances quality assurance by placing emphasis on the development and strengthening of internal quality assurance systems within institutions. We have guided institutions and supported institutions in this area, and we also encourage institutions to develop a culture of quality. Now, in terms of accreditation, as you know, this is the preferred methodology of quality assurance internationally. And it has served as a primary vehicle for assuring and improving quality in higher education. We always say that it's the stamp of approval or stamp of recognition, which the external quality assurance agency gives to an institution or a program to indicate that it has met the required standard. We started off, from inception, we started off with program accreditation because it was new. The whole concept of accreditation and quality assurance at the time was new, and we used program accreditation as the building block to strengthen the institutions in terms of developing a quality of culture. So the institutions, so we would focus on the programs while doing and looking at the institutional factors that are in place to support and ensure the quality of that program. To date, we have over 400 programs accredited. Now, since 2017, the council, in a response to a mandate from the ministry, has started to focus on institutional accreditation. And based on that mandate, we have now accredited, I think of 6 institutions have received institutional accreditation. It's different from program accreditation in that institutional accreditation looks at the institution as a whole, and it's a comprehensive evaluation of their institution's internal quality assurance process. So we would not necessarily delve into programs. Not to say that it doesn't preclude an institution from seeking program accreditation. Say, for instance, if they're offering engineering, then they would want to have a specific program accreditation for those engineering programs. Though institutional accreditation specifically looks at the internal quality assurance systems which the institutions have in place. So that's the brief introduction so far. There was a statement mentioned earlier about whether or not if an institution receives international accreditation, should they still need to be accredited, to be accredited? I think that was the gist of the concern. And yes, the institution must ensure that their programs or their institution is assured by the National External Quality Assurance Agency. The host country, the entity that is responsible for quality assurance in the host country, they must ensure that is done. And because that we are the only way, and then if they want to seek international accreditation, that is fine, but they must ensure that they are recognized locally. But that's the day. So I'm finished with my presentation. Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Heron, for your presentation. At this time, we're going to welcome Mr. Dean Palmer to speak with us on quality assurance.
Okay, thank you. Good morning again, everyone. I'm glad that we have representatives from the different agencies here, because we have had a conversation, from a quality assurance perspective. What we find is that sometimes what UCJ requires of us, we are unable to deliver because of regulatory standards that might have been set. So, as Dr. Black touched on the JTEC and was speaking about PLAR, right? And what we find coming out since COVID with some level of learning loss, and we have to be pivoting somewhat, and we have to try and engage students coming on board who perhaps have some level of prior learning to try and matriculate into our programs. And this is something that we have to try and explore as much as possible. And with the advent of the coming out of the pandemic, we are seeing the rise of the use of AI in our students' assessments. And what we find as quality assurance officers is that we have to put in place mechanism to safeguard some level of academic integrity. And what we find is that we have to engage, and several institutions have engaged us in the ethical aspects of AI, treating with it. And a lot of institutions, what we have embarked on is sensitizing our students and our teachers and how to use artificial intelligence, AI, in delivering course, because it's something that is happening, it's a reality that is currently taking place. UCJ, I should comment rather, because they provide a lot of assistance with training. They recognize that sector where micro-credentialing is becoming more popular. Yeah, advocating for startup credentials, and they are putting in the necessary framework, and that should be commendable. Training was provided for that. And I'm glad that Dr. Benjamin is here also, because the tertiary unit, one of the things I must commend is building out the capacity of the quality assurance unit, because most institutions, the QA unit is very small. What you find is that most of the functions that should take place is unable to do so effectively. So building up the QA unit is very important for institutions in achieving program accreditation, and which will ultimately drive public institutional accreditation, right? So that is good, and engaging us in the consultation, and that should be commended also. And I'm glad that the ministry seek to take on some aspects of the policy report as it relates to the tertiary sector. And what that we do is bolster our quality assurance and ensure that our programs are viable and that it has achieved some level of standard. So it is good that all of the agencies and the that falls under the umbrella of the ministry that is there. But the one that I think is most contentious, and we would love for Dr. Gunn to be here, was the JTC bill, because I know the government is trying to implement that bill, but it is encountering some roadblocks, because what you find is that the consultation, the proper consultation, the proper background was not done. So that is what is stalling that process. But we hope that coming out of the joint select committee, that good sense will prevail and that the teachers will not be at a disadvantage. So that is it for me for now, but I'm glad that all the representatives of the staff are here so that they can hear our concerns and we can get a better understanding of their functions and how it relates to the tertiary sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. I'm sure that, sorry, Mr. Palmer, my apologies. I'm sure that, you know, when we would have left here today, we would have been enlightened. And also there might be additional questions that we want to have answered, having heard all that we have heard. But as tertiary, I think one of the things, you know, we need is to be more recognized, be more out front. Sometimes it would appear that we are placed on the back burner. But from here, I hope that we will be out a little more and that we will be seen for our work that we are doing. And so it is a good thing that we have been engaged or we are engaging others to help us to better understand where we are at this point in time. And especially so, sir, with the advent of AI and online education, online assessment. This is so important that we know exactly where we are going, how we can overcome some of the obstacles that this places in our way in terms of the quality that we are putting out. And so I thank you, sir. At this time, I want to call back our chairman to come to us, and then she will guide us to our question and answer session with Professor Martin. Thank you all for listening in, and I hope you will have had your questions ready and waiting. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Morris William, for guiding us through this session. Let me hear a round of applause for her, please. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. This is the time when you can ask the questions, the burning questions that you have brought with you or that have now emanated as a result of the presentations that you have heard. I will invite Assistant Professor Juno Martin to lead us in this session. Let's just hear it for Professor Martin.
Very much. Madam Chair, let me take the opportunity to welcome everyone to the forum. We have found it very, very important as part of the JTA's mandate to address matters relating to tertiary. And as you have heard from the many presentations, we are still in the process of trying to understand some of the operational issues as it relates to tertiary. As mentioned earlier, one of the things that we really have concerns about is the duplication across the sector. It's a big issue, and it's one that we must find ways to resolve very quickly, because it does create some other kinds of issues. Sometimes you have major differences, and in those conversations, there are many concerns in terms of some of the matters that are raised there. But I must say though that in the sector itself, we must congratulate the various entities for the progress that we have made, in terms of bringing the sector, making the sector a little more organized than it really is at the moment. And I think the little things that are left to be completed include simply just iron out the kinks so that we avoid the duplications. But the rules have now been more clearly defined to a very great extent, and so we're getting there, right? So I think the sector has done a lot in terms of moving us from what I would call best practice to common practice, because that is where we need to go. So we must commend the various entities for that movement, right? From simply just best practice to common practice, because that is important. That's going to drive the change. That's where we articulate the vision in tertiary quite clearly. My own concern though is one of my major concerns though is in relation to driving innovation. And I think oftentimes we are credited to be way behind where the world is, so to speak, in innovation. And I think that is something that we have to look at clearly in terms of where we're going. And we made mention of AI earlier. The matter of having clear policies that it relates to AI use in the sector. That is a big issue. We are still struggling to find a place in terms of driving that commonality as it relates to what should happen and what we're finding happening, that AI is now evolving much faster than we can ever think. And we are way behind trying to find a way to ensure that at tertiary, we can at least have some commonalities in terms of how we're going to treat or how we're treating AI. And so at the moment, it's left to individual institutions to really articulate the processes where AI is concerned, right? I'm also particularly concerned about development. Earlier, I heard our PS making a very critical statement, and the concern that she raises one that we have to pay close attention. 18 hours as to do research. And so the idea that 18 hours really is basically consumed with academic work, and if we're going to encourage persons at the tertiary level to do research, then 18 hours is asking too much. So, I'm trying to find out if that is part of the discussion going forward.
So when we looked at it, and as I would have stated, and I'll state here, we whether or not, and as educators, we know, I work a 40-hour week, but I don't work a 40-hour week. So what I mean by that. So we established 18 contact hours. And it acknowledges that the remaining hours, it speaks to the other duties that you would expect a lecturer to be engaged in. Now, there is in the framework, there's nothing that stipulates that every single lecturer is going to be offered a research project. What it does is says that the lecturers should support the college's research agenda. It builds out a research unit with 3 dedicated research officers. And the expectation is that if whatever the research focus is, if it's aligned to your work, you would support it. But it doesn't mean that you're going to take up yourself and take on a big meat. Because at this point in time, one of the things that we're cautious of is committing more than we can fund or provide. So if we're going to go down a line that says everybody is going to do 9 hours, or I don't know what the standard is at you, but I think it's about 9 at you, 15 at UTech. Now, the implications of that are going to be significant.
Okay.
All right. So it's about creating a framework that will encourage research in the college instance, but not necessarily say that every single lecturer has to use 6 hours or 15 hours to be out there doing research. So you create a team and everybody supports the team.
Understood. And that makes some sense. All right. Yes, questions right here. You have the microphone. It's using the microphone.
Okay, Dr. Martin, if I may, sorry, just to accommodate the online persons, and I'm hoping that we're back on 2 questions that were posted by Paulette Christie. 1, will JTC bill apply to the tertiary since a JTech bill is being drafted? I think that question could go to Dr. Black. I'm not sure who will respond. That's the first question that is found online before the power link.
Black, yes, I guess. One of the issues that emerged before the TC bill was tabled in Parliament was the whole matter of the application of the requirement for registration at the tertiary level. The TC bill, as it is certainly structured, does not really stand. And the JTech bill will not be applied. The norm determines the practice at this level. It does not really speak to registration of teachers. It is a different model of practice and engagement. And so that is unlikely to match.
I'm hoping that response, Paulette, was still on to hear the response. The other question, I think, based on what I'm seeing, goes to Dr. Powell Wilson. It says, how does CPCJ guarantee quality with the same persons writing and marking exams?
All right. So the lecturers, the system that we have in place, the lecturers, they submit items for consideration for examination papers. The items are submitted to the external examiners, and these persons collate the examination paper. The lecturers are required to mark the papers. Once the papers are marked, then they are sampled by the external examiner to enhance the quality. So there are things in place to ensure that there's some objectivity from the person who would have submitted the item for consideration for examination.
I just want to again. I just want to follow that forward and that process as it is now. Is that it's that when the lecturers submit their papers, actually what obtains is that lecturers put the paper together, the examination paper. I think that's what the question was really gearing toward, because in previous years, what took place is that when we went to that they made recommendation and questions, but now in recent times, what you find is that your lecturers at vetted is now collated a paper A and a paper B. So I think that questions the quality safety individual
That I'll have to investigate. That I'll have to investigate if the lecturers actually put the paper together at the vetting session. Thanks for that information. I'll have to investigate that.
All right, so talking about that, I'm going to go. That is interesting. All right. Yes, there's a question.
Yes, there's somebody on the this morning. I'm calling Spence from the JTA Tertiary. I'm happy that in the presentation that Mrs. Murphy did, there it was pointed out that our paternity is sometimes a question where we sit. And so I'm sure that with everybody here, we're going to know who the factor soon. Additionally, I have two human resource management type concern, and I think the first one is something that Dr. Benjamin will be able to assist me. Concern as to the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. And I share my personal experience to support that conclusion. And I was to be confirmed as the Minister of Education, as a teacher. I got my teacher's training at the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts, the only one in the Caribbean. And I thought the Minister of Education knew that we trained teachers. However, I had to send my credentials to the UCJ and pay for it to be recognized. And I mean, I think that it's a matter of one institution. I know what the next one is doing, and especially because it came from the ministry. I was not concerned. So my question is, has that changed? I would want anybody to have to go change that situation again. So I'm hoping that that is after a year, they answer and I would sorry? Teacher training. Or teacher training.
Something that was your first degree?
No, that's for my teacher training.
Okay, your diploma?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that. I don't know. It's the only qualifications that we usually I don't know what the process was at the time. I was there less than 6 months. But what we do now, it would apply to postgraduates. That may be a request for postgraduate certification to be either verified by UCJ or it would be submitted to the equivalent of qualifications committee, but that would normally be for postgraduate certification.
Well, my education is in the other concern that I have is I don't know if it's out of ignorance. The quality assurance situation has become more important and popular these days. I'm wondering if none of these quality assurances have anything to do with working conditions and staff working and that kind of thing, but I'm not seeing it. And in that case, it is where my vision comes in now to see where there are concerns. And I'm happy we're having all the stakeholders, relevant stakeholders here, so that some of the concerns that we have as tertiary educators can be heard, and so everyone can understand that our situation seems to be unique. Thank you.
I don't want to take that advantage in terms of quality assurance. And it relates to the lack of focus on working conditions and other issues. I would understand that those are, those are important, but I guess Sabano could help us with that one. It is Aaron is on. She could help us with something. Go ahead, go ahead. Okay. You can help us.
Well, with respect to the human resource aspect, what this is really check for is qualification.
Can you speak up?
There's a persons who are teaching that is one level of form, but as it relates to the staff welfare, none of that is going to be captured. And that is something that could go further. So that's a shortcoming.
But part of it too, though, I think the institution has some responsibility to some of those institutions. You have representation. So, for example, staff is represented even at the board.
That's true.
So there is that opportunity for staff to get the matter addressed. There's a JTA and members of JTA. So possibly what institutions could do, is to get the matter placed on the table at the representational level. So yeah,
Altia wants to speak. Ms. Heron wants to speak.
Oh, that could be stuff. HR factors in
the
I cannot say what the title of the specific standard in the UCJ's accreditation framework is. Within our standards, we call it human resource responsibilities. And so what we do is, as we engage an institution, we query with respect to HR policy. We query with respect to the issue related to feedback. But these are very basic and routine and central. In the same way that you have a focus on students. Staff, the matter of staff is always important. So the extent to which you receive feedback that indicates describes, etc. Those matters are tabled, or maybe tabled.
Yes, she wants to speak.
In the context of the important and institution. But no one is left out. It's a full process whereby we look at all matters and institutions. Let me add to that.
No.
The legal framework in Jamaica, I don't remember when disability was processed. The 2015. We just want to give sexual harassment act. All of these things are not for the society. It's for all sectors in society and impacting institutions. So therefore, we get expected that ordinance comply with the legal and regulatory framework matters such as the whistleblower act. There are a whole host of things that apply. No entity can speak or not say that somebody's relate to them. And so any external qualification will review that within the context of an absolute certain of the UCJ practice of accreditation. They meet with stakeholders.
So Ms. Heron indicated that she wanted her mic unmuted and there's a hand over so indicate to them, present to them.
Those things are
Ms. Heron wants to
comments related to.
Before you take the questions in the room, Mrs. Heron would want to offer some clarity. Please accommodate her.
Yes, go ahead, Mrs. Heron.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to respond to that question. Just to say that they.
Not hearing Ms. Heron.
Oh, I want to respond to that question. Just to say that in the accreditation process, there is a standard that's, are you hearing me?
No, hold on a second, sir. Okay, go ahead for now.
Okay, so yes, so in the quality assurance standards, there is a standard that addresses the whole matter of facility, laboratories, student services. So those standards are there, and they are, and when we do our site visits.
Hold on a second, Miss Sharon, please. We're having a little challenge here. Let's try this. Can you go ahead and try again for him?
Right.
Sharon?
Yes, so I'm saying that.
Hold on a second again. We're trying again.
Well, we need to hear her when your presentation.
Using a headset. Let's one more try, please.
Can you hear me now?
You can hear? Okay. Yes, we can hear you now.
Right. So I'm right. In the for both accreditation standards, program and institutional, there is a standard that focuses on the facilities as well as student services and what the institution is providing for the students. And yes, it is the institution's responsibility to ensure the quality. We are sure, but the institution has that responsibility to ensure that they are meeting at least minimum standards.
Thank you, Ms. And probably one of the questions that persons might ask is if staff from an institution do report that they're having challenges in this area, what steps do the UCJ take in order to address the solutions, to this problem?
Just so particularly the persons in question are employed to institutions that are owned by the ministry, operated under the ministry, the PHEI. There are channels that can be used and should be used, and people do use them. So if there's a concern and there is need for clarification, normally we recommend that persons use the channels within the institution, speaking to the principal, escalating to the board as might be the need. And if there is need for information or clarity, then they can get guidance from the tertiary unit. People also need to remember they can go and look on your file, those regular things that apply. But it would maybe interesting if some more details could be provided so that the context in which the concern or the question is being raised. Because if it is welfare from the perspective, when we say staffing conditions, I think about a number of things. The space I'm working in, the equipment I have, but if you are more specific, it might help both UCJ and even JTA and myself situate ourselves in terms of our responsibility with respect to that particular part of the institution's operation.
All right. So we understand that.
All right.
Yes.
If I may add, what institutions need to do is to develop staff manual, which outline these mechanisms, grievance procedure. So it is incumbent on the institutions to develop staff manuals as a part of their internal quality assurance, which outline the mechanism and procedures of the staff and grievance.
I'm a part of this area, the people. Yeah.
There's a hand but somebody needs to pump.
Yes, right, yes.
All right. Oh, somebody wants to know?
Because after you wait through it, you can come today. Yes, Dr. Williams.
Okay, all right. So I did indicate that I'll get some clarification on the matter that was raised.
Yes.
That lecturers put the papers together and the papers are submitted and mark the paper. How do we ensure quality? First, with lecturers submitting exam items or even writing a paper does not mean quality is not maintained. And it is for that reason why we have the second tier, which is the external examiner. So that's not unique to the CCCJ and the member institutions. All right? That's standard. The lecturers have been gone through that process. How is the information communicated to the students? All right? Or is not how, is the information communicated to the students, not how. So the CCCJ process, the lecturers recommend the items for inclusion. It's the externals that compile the final papers for administration. However, there may be instances where we ask a lecturer to submit a supplemental paper. There are instances where only one college is offering a particular program and we can only get the item from the expert. All right. So the CCCJ, we quality assure the process. We do not have the experts in-house. That's why we rely on the lecturers. So we quality assure that process to ensure that the quality is maintained.
And it's important for us to understand that is standard policy across institutions, because that you take that's the system that we use also. The external examination component is very critical to the quality assurance. I think we have Dr. Williams online. Dr. Williams, go ahead with your question, Dr. Williams.
Yes, please. Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, or it's good afternoon. It's 7 minutes past 12. Just to add to that, before I ask and make a suggestion, that after, when the students have completed, have done the examination, what happens before the actual marking of the examination scripts, and as shared by Dr. Wilson, what happens also, there is a moderation standardization exercise whereby all the colleges now come together and look at that question paper and the key and discuss all the likely answers, responses, along with what's there, and come to agreement as to what is acceptable, not acceptable, etc. And of course, a grading system happens there, of course, and then you go away having an idea as to how you need to treat any of the questions. And I should suggest to you too, that actually before that what we actually look at, some marking is done to an extent, and you select the strongest, that is all the A's, all the B's, all the C's, and you take a sample of that to look at what a question response looks like, etc., etc. So if you are an expert, that means having years of experience, or you are a newcomer, you are really taught, exposed, trained in the system as to know what to look for. And then all of that, now when you're done marking, it goes back to the external, who I believe looks at each question paper rigorously and either upgrade or take down the grade as they so fit. And it is again communicated back to the institution. All right, where I needed to go. Suggestion and question, especially for TCJ, all the 8 colleges, we are struggling, and the country is struggling in that we don't have enough teachers coming into the system. And let me say applicants coming into the system, because they are not interested for all kinds of reasons, especially for those scarce areas. And because we are teachers' colleges, yes, and although we are university certified, what we see happening on the ground when you go out there, they gravitate toward the universities, and I don't need to name them. UCJ knew all the universities that are accredited, etc. The students are going there. So we are struggling at another level to get the numbers in, and our numbers are low. And yes, the colleges have been very creative in finding ways and means of trying to recruit the students who are not coming in. So we have a problem when we are restricted somewhat, that it has to be teacher training, it has to be education, when we are looking at other industries or the BSc, etc., to accommodate the interests of the students. Number 3 out of that is that if we were to look at the fact that we really are suffering from a teacher shortage right now, because our teachers are migrating as soon as they finish, they are going, and we know where we're going. We are not going into that. However, if we were to revisit, and I can tell, I came from the internship year, and I'm proud to be of the internship year student in 1983. If we could go back to that, whereby for 2 years in and 1 year out there for the students to grow, mature, and at the same time to fill the deficit that is in the system. Additionally, what our applicants are saying out there on the field, number 5, is that they do not, I think I have been, okay, yes, they are not interested in a 3-year, 4-year program. They want a short-term program, and in the short-term program, they are also interested in earning. So 2 years plus 1, year 3 would be the earning power to get more applicants for teacher education. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. I think Dr. Benjamin wants to respond to.
Okay, I don't know if I remember every single thing that Dr. Williams said, but just two points. In terms of enrollment or registration in teacher training programs, the numbers registered in the colleges, the 8 colleges as you referenced, actually, each of the colleges has more students than the School of Education at UA. I don't know about UTech, but I'm at UA. So right now, our colleges actually are training majority of those persons who are pursuing programs in teacher education. So if they are pursuing a program in education, the colleges are actually the first point of reference. And that's coming up, that's data that I have. And there has been discussions with the School of Education at UA. As I said, I'm not sure what the figures at UTech look like, but certainly for UA, I can say that with confidence. As it relates to looking at, within the ministry, we have been engaging a wide range of stakeholders. And we've put together, I know I've seen one version of it, and I would have engaged another set of persons, looking at recruitment and retention, strategies that would have been policy driven. What are some of the things that we can do to attract and retain? Some of those conversations have happened with the principals in the colleges. We've looked at some of the strategies for teacher education or the approaches that the government used to use years ago. How we funded, what were the requirements then, the level of support we offer to students then versus what obtains now. And we've had conversations about how that may be impacting their ability to attract. So that conversation is taking place. And I believe the last discussion we had, we were asked to cost what that would look like now if we were to implement it now. So there is that conversation taking place. And then finally, in terms of there is a view, not a view. We have feedback that students are not necessarily attracted to the 4-year programs. And that is one of the possible reasons why the uptake for some programs is not at the level that it could be. And that conversation is also taking place with the principals. If this was something that we were to consider, yes, it would mean looking at 3 semesters and all of those things, depending on the truth is the target group is not the same mindset. They have different goals. We all know than you would have found 20, I would even dare say 10 years ago. And so the landscape has shifted in terms of the students who are coming into our institutions. And so one of the things I believe it's important for us to be doing is talk about research, finding out what's driving them, finding out what their interests are, and finding out what would make our programs more attractive for them or to them. And then looking at how we are offering what we are offering to ensure that what we are doing is not about compromising quality by any means. but that what we are doing is responding to their interests. And some like to work and study. Some want to be out, be out in the workforce faster. That's why the 4 years is not attractive. But if we have the information available to us, it can inform how we shape our programs and how we offer them. We have looked at, by the way, the 3+1 or I don't know if you said whether it's 3 or 2+1, but that is a proposal that has come back on the table in terms of that 1 year internship. As I said, it's important to note that yes, it can have the potential of giving us a boost, but that will happen the first time you do it. Because then after that, you just end up in a 3-year cycle or whatever the cycle is, and your numbers kind of just go back there. But the key that we've been focusing on, not necessarily from the perspective of boosting us that way, is whether or not that 1 year internship has the potential to improve the quality of the teacher once graduated because of that extended clinical period. And so that is on the table, and we are actually taking a look at it as a part of the process of reviewing the entire approach to how we prepare teachers in Jamaica.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, intervention, quite in depth. We understand the realities that it's a quite complex issue that we face now at tertiary level across the board. You know, in terms of our young people transitioning into further study. And so the problem, I think, exists further down the chain. We have to even get down to that stage also in terms of guiding our students through, through careers and a lot of things that we need to take into consideration. So it's quite complex. But in a sense, what is important is that efforts are being made to address the problem. And so what I suggest to my colleagues, get into the conversation. Be a part of it, be active in the conversation, share your ideas, and I know that will help in terms of us trying to find a solution to that major problem that we're having in teachers' training. Yes, Dr. Paul.
All right. You alluded to it earlier, that this is not an issue only for teacher training. It's a tertiary issue. Yesterday, I was at a function, Ministry of Labor and Social Security put on productivity, future of work, right? And for one session, the discussion was, we do not have Jamaica, we do not have graduates at the tertiary level for the workspace. A recommendation was that we should extend, well, Friday yesterday, the recommendation was that we should extend the secondary year with the hope of addressing that issue. We have extended the secondary years and we're still having the problem. All right? We are still having the problem. So I think, well, Dr. Benjamin mentioned that research has to be done. There must be something else that is preventing persons from accessing tertiary education. There must be something else, because where are the students? Where are the persons? What are they doing? What are they gravitating towards? Skills. Even with the skills, they're not going in the skills areas too. Have you recognized the marketing campaign for HEART for the free program? So there's an issue there. What is it?
Just to say, although we say the cost is one of the deterrents, in conversations with our principals, there is a one of the proposals put on the table. I mean, all the institutions is increased in about scholarships and so on available. Ministry has quite a handsome budget to provide tuition support to students. Under JAMVAT, they're required to do 200 hours of community service. The JAMBAC budget as long as I have managed it over 5 years has never been exhausted because they are not interested in doing the hours. Under the financial assistance grants, they have 100 hours. I think that may be the most performed, that portfolio performed significantly. So they do 100 hours. The support we provide, of course, is limited. But that one, usually we have significant uptake for that. And then under the scholarships, my general experience is that they are usually undersubscribed. Again, because nobody wants to sign a bond. So again, when I talk about researching, I'm talking about understanding the mindset of those persons who are eligible to access higher education. And of course, we know they don't want to go to student loan either. I don't know what will happen this year now that the guarantor requirement has been removed. So that will be very interesting to see how they respond. But I think these are things we need to be collectively researching because we have an interest in, there's an interest in the institutions thriving, but more importantly, our young people accessing opportunities that will prepare them to succeed personally and contribute to community and national development. So if they don't go, we all lose, right? And so it's in our interest to really begin to understand what's causing them to think. We know that the call centers that are keep hearing people say that way to the call centers. If it is the earning, the ability to earn now, how do we, knowing that, create opportunities that allow them to do that, but make them see that they are still able to access higher education and the benefits of that. I don't know, maybe our messaging is not as strong as it should be in helping them to see where higher education can take you in the long term. Because many times, as we know, young people, you're only looking at today, right? And again, that's why I say us doing research, all of us in the sector doing research and shaping how we promote and encourage and inform and educate, I think it's going to play a significant role in shifting the landscape.
Very good point, Dr. Benjamin. What are your questions here and then we go? Yes, I got it. That's two questions there.
Yeah, let me go ahead and look up before mine. So I will quite speak to her and then I'll.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hear a lot of technology being thrown around in the discussions that we're having. So my questions are there any plans in place to increase major stakeholders group challenges with one, understanding what technology really is. Sometimes I think we take it for granted that major stakeholders would understand this whole concept of what technology is. Two, access to technological platforms along with the requisite support services. What are our plans for that? And three, are we planning on upgrading our physical plans to facilitate the effective use of technology?
I want to say, as a third world country, we're a challenge. And one of the issues is sometimes when it comes to technology, we understand there's a major cost to technology. And that cost is not just devices. When you're dealing with technology, you have to look at training, you have to look at the infrastructure, you have to look at the entire gamut of what supports technology. And I think one of our challenges sometimes is inability to afford it. I'm not saying that that should be a deterrent, because I know, for example, there are many persons who have become quite creative in terms of utilizing technologies, right? So let's say, for example, what is used, the tools that are used, OERs are there, right? And I know there are many institutions who are actually utilizing that approach. Basically, it is a challenge, but I think in many cases we have not done badly. I think part of the challenge sometimes is the mechanisms that we have in place now to make it work, to make the things work as how they should, right? I know many institutions have done a lot of work
in modernizing, so to speak, their spaces. But I can tell you from my institution standpoint, it's not very easy to do, because at UTech we are in practicals, and it's not easy to outfit a space. And even though we say the students are paying fees, right? But remember, those fees have different categories in terms of what comes on those fees. And it takes a while to do it. But what we are doing basically more of is partnering with private sector. So we are big on experiential learning. So what we are doing now is ensuring that the students get into spaces where the technology is and at least become familiar with the technology, along with what we have to support them. So there are other things that can be done. I think some institutions can be more creative in terms of how they get the technology. Issue solved. Part of it is training, I think. Training is important. And nowadays I say to professionals, you don't have any much excuses, because there are so many universities existing. YouTube is a free university. There are so many free training available. There are many universities who have MOOCs and they are offering free courses, very, very important free courses. And I think part of it too is that as professionals, we have to take some of the responsibility of recognizing the need to upgrade ourselves. That's very, very important. I find that. And so I encourage institutions, administrators to get their staff, oriented into this kind of approach to professional development. Professional development is a big cost, I mean, I will tell you how much it costs in the Ministry of Education when it comes to professional development. And sometimes what's missing is that as professionals, we are not doing enough individually to drive the process. And that's why one of my disappointments is the JTC bill to drive that process of professional development. It can't be that we have teachers in the system who are so outdated when it comes to the use of technology. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be at all. It should be a case where, just like other professions, where you are required to produce evidence that you have certain competencies in order to continue in the profession. That's really, really important. And I say that, I know some of you might not, like that, but the truth is, we ought to recognize that there is a need for that change when it comes to technology use in our space. All right? So we'll take, yes, and then we take a question. Well,
thank you so much. My question is for Dr. Benjamin. The new standards that are out, the JTA, is it for implementation now or in a future space? That's question one. Question two, those persons who are already confirmed by the ministry in positions that do not appear on that chart, what is the implication for those individuals?
I'm going to ask a question to answer your second question, but as I mentioned earlier, the guidelines have been approved and have been implemented. The staffing model will be implemented over time because while we have agreed to the structure, we do not create posts in the Ministry of Education. So we have to work with the Ministry of Finance to create the posts, get them with post numbers, ensure they are funded, and then allow the institutions to employ persons to fill the posts. So we will be doing that over a period of time. And we expect to be finished within about 3 years. But while that is going on, we are initiating audits, staff audits, conducted by the Ministry of Finance, so that we can also look at what's happening on the academic side and make decisions in terms of staffing complement there. Right? So are there enough? Some institutions have grown significantly since they would have probably the last time their establishment was updated. So it now gives us current information as to the number of persons that you have on staff versus your student population, if you have grown in size. Now, in terms of the second question you asked, versus on the structure. Okay, so if you could give me, I don't like answering hypothetical questions if it would be good if I got an example. So there the structure that we have promoted in doesn't detail. In fact, in several instances, we have not gone to the point of naming posts, right? So for instance, even in the HR and the finance, it's a general structure. There is nothing there that says management accountant with a classification or whatever. It speaks to the functions that will reside in the finance department and the functions that will reside in the HR department, for instance. So what I'm asking is if there is something specific you note, then I can respond to that specific concern.
Okay, thank you. If I may offer clarification. For example, if someone is a principal lecturer too, but the area of special responsibility is not one that they believe should be like a head of school, etc. That person received their appointment from the Ministry of Education.
Great. All right. So for the background of those who may not know, what is proposed is clearly establishing the role of what what each classification means. As it is now, you have lecturer, senior lecturer, principal lecturer 1, principal lecturer 2, and you have this reduced hours with the expectation that persons at the higher levels will have responsibilities. No, that's not always the case. All right. So, and it wasn't clear. Two, it actually came up through the process of even the compensation review. What is this for? Why does this person have less hours than this person? Right? So those were some of the questions that initiated the discussion that we really needed to clearly define who is a lecturer, who is a senior lecturer. So we say if you're a senior lecturer, it means you'll have less hours and you should be carrying a responsibility that, as I would have said, is aligned to your department or wherever, right? The principal lecturer becomes your head of department. Principal lecturer 1 will become your head of department. Principal lecturer 2 will become your dean. Now, if somebody, that therefore would mean, let's say there was a college with 5 faculties. It meant that on full implementation, they would only have 5. Not exactly, because there are some other posts of special responsibility that carry the principal lecturer 2 classification under the new structure. But let's say a college had 5 faculties and then they have these additional posts, which means technically they should have 8 principal lecturer 2 posts. But on the current establishment, they have 15. Nobody is going to come and remove the classification you were appointed in. You will continue to operate in that and be paid accordingly. That adjustment will take place once that post is vacant. Then the post will be reclassified, and that is the general understanding. So there's nothing is going to take place that's going to cause somebody to be displaced or demoted, as it may be interpreted. That's not going to happen. So we would then look at the suite of posts in the college based on the new structure. We would, as I don't like to use the term, but it is a GOJ term, red circle those posts that clearly we see as being excess within that classification and rectify the situation over time once the person in the post vacates the post. Right?
All right, the question at the front, yes.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Just want to ask Dr. Benjamin, since we're still on that topic, I noted that the person earlier spoke of quality assurance when they were asking about the cleaning of the place and that sort of stuff. I just want to ask, is there any plan to have some sort of consultation with the QA officers as it relates to QA officers within, especially TCG, as it relates to this new transition that they may have in the future. New transition being that of moving from the academic space to now the administrative space.
All right, so we are waiting on some information first, but I want to clarify something. The structure actually has two QA officers. The current title of the post is QA officer. The post that would be administrative is the QA manager. That's a whole new post, right? So I think I think a lot of persons were, and even I wasn't even paying attention because everybody was concerned with this moving, whatever. So I think once we get the information, because we've actually written to get some information based on concerns that were raised on the ground, and we are clear in terms of the path we're going to take, if there needs to be that consultation, so I don't know what the outcome will be, then there is no issue having that conversation with principals and with the QA officers on the ground. All right?
Okay.
So we're waiting on some information to clarify the genesis, let me put it that way, of the post that currently exists. And then once that is provided, we will review it internally and then we will engage further to determine the pathway forward.
Okay, I understand based on the distinction that you have made. Finally, this whole matter, is there some plan again within the whole scheme of things to look at an overall curriculum reform for tertiary education? I say that because when we talk about what the students want to learn versus what we're offering, why is there not an uptake of these three things that art is offering? It's simply because they're not interested in those things. Those things to them are outdated. And it's simply because they can make money doing quick things. I sat in a restaurant with a former student of mine, and he started to video the food and take picture of the food. And he said to us, smile. All right, taste the food, eat the food. I said, what are you doing? He says, I'm making content. I'm going to send it to this restaurant and I can be their content developer. And that's quick. You understand what I'm saying? That's quick money. And then you flash out the thing to say, I've done this several places. And so they are not thinking about the traditional jobs. It's the same thing with the teaching that we are doing. That teaching has evolved immensely. And we are still focusing on chalkboard going into a classroom teaching. And the students are beyond that. The curriculum is far beyond what we are doing. When you go back and you say, oh, well, we have to teach a bandura so that you can understand. You know, the thing, I mean, you understand what I'm saying? So I really, really think I looked at the last ILO report for Jamaica, and they suggested that there's several labor market niches that we're not tapping into as a nation within our curriculum. So I'm asking, what are the plans and how do we go about that? Those are the changes.
Well, I can speak from the tertiary units standpoint, and it's interesting. We meet with our principals every quarter and, well, try to get it done for this quarter, but the intention for the next quarter, we have invited persons from the Ministry of Labor to share current workforce labor data on all areas. Because we believe that those are the kinds of conversations that we need to be having now that will help us to look at whether or not. When we look at some programs, the registration numbers are so low, they're actually below the standard you would consider to be viable, but we continue to offer them. So we need to, again, be looking at that. We want to make sure, though, that our decisions are being driven by data. And so if it means that there are areas within the workforce, and that for me has to be a broader conversation, because there is somebody creating an opportunity for themselves, may not necessarily be trained, but creating it. But how can we now create the programs that can hone that person's skills, right? And so that's part of what we are trying to do in terms of revising the curriculum, certainly coming out of the JTA report, where we have started the process of doing a comprehensive review of what we are doing for teacher training. So we've had one engagement already, and that's going to have to look at content, methodology, everything that we call teacher training will become a part of that, that we will dissect and then rebuild and hopefully create something that is a lot more responsive and attractive to the person that we want to put into the profession.
and having a discussion with CXC quickly. Recently, they mentioned the concern that the institutions are not, taking up the new generation subjects to prepare the students. And so that's also another issue that we are facing. So there are so many things, that we are. So we take one final question from the floor, and then I have this something on the ticket.
So, follow.
All right, so we take these two last questions. All right, take these two last questions. I know we are burning questions. We are trying. We are way over time. Go ahead.
I have a follow-up question to my colleague from Excelsior. She raised an issue of being in a current, a role that maybe under the new dispensation would not be in the same category. There's a flip side that I'm looking at. There are instances where persons are functioning as head of departments, but they are senior lecturers. What would that mean in the new dispensation for those persons who are currently in that situation?
So that will also have to be adjusted, but particularly in those cases, that's where the audits will now come into play. Because that's where, remember, when recommendations are made for appointment to the ministry, it just says Mary Brown Senior Lecturer. Doesn't say Mary Brown Senior Lecturer who is acting as head of department, right? And that's part of why even the restructuring becomes important, because it now clearly defines who is who. So if Mary Brown is going to be a senior head of department, it establishes you shouldn't have two head of departments in an institution, one as a senior lecturer and one as a principal lecturer. That's not equitable. So those are some of the things that were put on the table that we needed to look at, because it means you're carrying out the same functions, but you're being remunerated differently. All right. And so that's part of why we decided that we needed to restructure and clearly define the roles and functions. So when the audit is done, those are some of the things that will be picked up. And then we will have to make a decision on how we right size the system. I can't tell you specifically now what will happen, but I can assure you that that will be part of the process of right sizing the system.
Thanks, we take final question.
Pleasant afternoon, colleagues. I am Tyrone Maxwell from the Knox Community College. Now, my area of concern lies from the presentation earlier. We all can attest to the fact that within the education sector, as previously mentioned by a colleague online, that we are all collaborating to get our numbers, within the education sector. At present, there are some new development within the high schools where the high schools started to offer the CXC associate degrees. They started to offer some of the NCTVET qualifications, etc., etc. And with the conversation that we are having now, where we're currently at, we find that there is a list of contributory factors that has caused us to be in the current position that we are at. At Knox Community College, as a part of the ICT department, we call it a capacity building initiative, where we go out and we have these impact sessions within the high schools. What we find is that some of these high school teachers may not be a subject matter specialist. However, what we find is that from a legislative perspective from the ministry, we have the structure of the high schools being changed, where the high schools now are being offered the opportunity to deliver content that they should come to us to have us deliver these content. And now, the last session that my colleague and I went to, they were thanking us. We get applause. It was like we were from Harvard, etc., coming to do a session there. Now, these are some of the things that we need to take into consideration
we need to have our high schools focus on their core content. Those are to prepare them to go to the college and the universities, the tertiary education. So we're in the current position that we're at present, simply because our high schools are venturing some different niche markets that they should not be focusing on theirs. And now, the question that I've asked now, what is being done to correct this issue? Because what we'll be doing now, we'll be slowly killing our community colleges, right? Because we have to be competing with our high schools. Thank you.
I don't know what I think that question. Yeah, before you want to help us with that.
It's a real issue. We're all pulling from the same pool. So it's going to take a lot of discussion. It's going to take the political will. And when I say political will, I'm not talking about JLP, PNP, but some decisions that should be made. I am not even sure if, as a group now, we are aware as to the number of students who are coming out of high school. What is it? Some time ago it was 50,000, we heard 40. It's gone to 30 now. We're operating as if everything is okay still. We're still expecting the 40,000, the 50,000 to come out, right? So I think those things we have to look at. The population that we are looking at now. It's the same set of students, the same number of students. Well, no, the number of students that have reduced. We have the same number of institutions trying to get the same number as if we had 50,000. So it's a discussion that I think we need to continue.
Yeah. And it's very interesting. So many things have been coming. Quickly, there's just one thing I read from the chat. There's somebody say one thing I did not see in the PHI document is a unit department to deal with online education that includes instructional designers, etc. I'm not so sure who can possibly
As I said, I think in moving around and visiting the colleges, we did get feedback. And so there we have made notes. And again, the truth is you'll never have an absolutely perfect structure because tomorrow morning something else is going to come on the horizon. For instance, when we did it, there was nothing about we would not have recognized we needed to have data protection officers. But then the data protection act was passed, and then when looking at the requirements, we recognize that was now another adjustment. So we've made a note of that, and we'll look within the but it's not a team function, so it's more on the curriculum and support side. So we'll look at that and see how we can try to respond to that.
very good response. So it will be addressed. So, you want to thank everybody for questions. Those are online. We apologize for the power issue, for the power control. And so we consider the forum to be, quite successful. There are so many things, the conversations have started. And I know when we get back to our institutions, for many of us will extend those conversations and provide clarifications in many cases where we have clarifications, right? And so, there's
a hand online. I don't know if you want to take it.
Who?
There's a hand, Dr. Williams.
Ganache, I don't know. There's a hand online. We just take that final hand.
All right.
Dr. Williams?
Janet, yes.
Hold on.
Janet Williams again from Short.
Hold a minute. Hold a minute.
Yeah, Janet Williams again from Shortwood Teachers College. Just a suggestion though, maybe the ministry could somehow split up all the funds to ensure that each tertiary institution gets almost the same amount of funding money for scholarships or so we can get some students, rather than most of it going to particular institutions. They've just split it up a little bit more and say each training institution gets whatever it is. Just split it up and let us just work with that a little bit more. Just a suggestion, maybe we'll get a little few more numbers in.
Okay, just so I heard the question and she's asking about the allocation of resources for scholarships. Just to note that in the space, there are scholarships that are funded under the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, for which the Ministry of Education and Youth we do not handle. We have not created a framework. The pool of funds available through the Ministry of Education and Youth, we try to handle it from an equitable standpoint, i.e., we create the area, we identify the areas, especially for the specialized scholarships. We would have identified the areas and we make them available to the students based on where they want to go. Once the programs are recognized, etc., all of those things. Now, we do not allocate to institutions. So there will be a pool of 50 math scholarships or 30 science scholarships. And wherever the students turn up from, that's where they go. One of the things I've tried to say to institutions over the years is that you now have to have your mechanism on the ground to encourage your students to apply. There was a period where we had 100 math education scholarships. And there were 2 institutions that were rigorous in recruiting and getting their students to access the scholarships. And they had majority of the students. And then there were others who really did not mobilize and operationalize internally to go out and recruit in their communities to identify the students. So we are not going to say, go to Michael or go to Shortwood or go to here or go to there. The pool is there, and you as institutions will know what's available in the areas, and you now have to decide how you're going to make sure that the students who are coming to your college know about the scholarships. And I'll tell you, there are years where there are scholarships that are under subscribed, right? So that's the approach that we want to continue to use, all right?
Thank you, Dr. Benjamin. And so that ends our question and answer session. So enjoy the rest of your day. Back over to our chair.
That was a good long session, and I'm sure there are still questions. I saw the microphone on this side still moving between persons. My only chairman's privilege question would be, when we have completed the PHI document, which one applies to tertiary when we also have the Education Act? Because we do know some administrators, they pull the convenient document at the time to suit the agenda of the moment. We have seen it, I've done it. I have to confess, yes. And so, sometimes it's to advantage, sometimes it's to the disadvantage of the staff. And so we would really like for some congruence, something to guide which ones will, because the policy as against a regulation, where do we go? And they all carry their own weight in terms of governance issues. And we don't want to flout the law and to disadvantage anyone. So we hear a 3-year guideline, a timeline. We know that these things take time. And so we anticipate the reform of the whole system. But before I invite a committee member that served us well in the last administration to say thank you to all of us, I have a few things I would like to share with you if you can help me to answer these questions. Before I do that, I know sometimes it's not always the nicest things to want to sit on the stage while we do all of that, but you do look nice up here, and I'm enjoying your company. Dr. Blackwood has been eager to go. All right, let me go quickly. I know who's going to get this prize because the question, it's not even a question, it's something that came from our Assistant Secretary General
to share with our team members before I say prize, our panelists, our JTA 60th anniversary calendar. I'm gonna ask Miss Mercy as another member of the team who is not sitting up here and is not speaking to please make the presentations to our guests who were on the panel. It's a beautiful calendar. And Sherry Ann, come please take it down the bottom so that my photographer can have a picture of you. Dr. Benjamin, beautiful Bevy, please. Yes. And you know what? Dr. Benjamin attended the best high school in Jamaica. She happened to attend the best high school called St. Andrew High School for Girls, my alma mater. Dr. Powell Wilson, please stand in line to receive yours. And thank you. Dr. Black, this is not your opportunity to leave me at the head table now, but I will. Dr. Powell Wilson. Thank you, Dr. Black. Oh. Thank you, Dr. Black. And I will not have one committee member not being kind to the another committee member. So I'll invite Mr. Dean Martin, Mr. Palmer, sorry, Mr. Palmer, to proceed to his colleague, their colleagues at the Montego Bay Community College. So we thank you. It's a real historical document, and I would want to have one myself. I hope Assistant Secretary General Dr. Margie Chin has one in store for me. All right. Dr. Chin has been so good to us and this committee that she brought us a few goodies. And so I know to whom the first one will go because she asked for the first male to have a right outside of Dr. Martin, who is a member of the committee, and he will be presented with a nice JTA memorabilia. Miss Sherry, you know you will be assisting me. And I don't even have to check the register because I was privileged to have him escort me up the stairs this morning. And so I will invite Mr. Tyrone Maxwell to, yeah, that's the one Sherry replied. And he's not wearing a tie, you know, so. But he's in a pin. You know, when Doran Dixon was president, he gave all the members of the council a pin because he said you must never appear at council undressed. And so we were all in our pins. Thank you so much. No, everybody else can answer now. Is there anybody, I'm gonna make them real easy. Is there anybody here who can tell me 2 of the 5 associations that came together to form the JTA? None of my committee members eligible for this? Anybody? Nobody? Not you, miss. Anybody? All right. So nobody has a Google? All right. I think you're a very good student. Very good. And I need to make this quick because your lunch has been here since 12 o'clock. Yes, we are hospitable people, and so we feed our guests when we invite them. All right. So nobody, okay. Can anybody tell me the year in which the JTA was born? We're 60 years old. Okay, lady in pink. Do you know the date and the month? All right. You got help from the back. So, Terry, just give the gift. Is there anybody else who can name me 3 past presidents of the JTA? Real easy question. Okay. Okay, you can tell who she was influenced by. All right, thank you. All right, can anybody name me, easy questions here. Can anybody tell me 2 governor generals who were teachers? Again?
Who? No, wrong. The first one wrong. Okay.
Which one are you giving?
The one down there. But we can give her something for trying and effort for, but all right. Thank you so much. Oh my God, somebody online said, but I don't know how somebody got it correct online. Kenneth Paul and Patrick Allen. Thank you so much for your contribution. You're not in the room. Who is this? Kerry or Kenny Senior. Thank you so much for participating. Okay, we have virtual gifts. All right, but somebody else in the room had answered correctly. I have a question, but this one is an essay. One of my team members contributed. What was the first person to stand and tell me what was the most insightful piece of information that you got from the session? No, so I don't know which session you were in. Because she's right about a particular part, a particular issue, a particular issue. Not that those in the system will be grandfathered out, but those who are holding positions in particular places. But for your effort, we will acknowledge you. Thank you so much. Because we wouldn't want nobody grandfather me out because I am in a legitimate post. Do you see when you teach a class how the different interpretations and makes it hard for mark and quality, because you're trying to get in the minds of the student to see what the student is trying to tell you. And you say they get this pass, you give them 2 out of 3. But and that is why we have to be so careful how we teach and we reinforce. All right. So, ma'am, you have homework. This was recorded. This was streamed on YouTube. So you need to go back and watch. All right. The next one, very open. Okay. This is a nice one to end with. How many more gifts we have, Sherry? We finished? The last one. After the discussion today, one person. What is the best way forward? This is very loaded. What's the best way forward for teachers at tertiary in your estimation? After all that we have said, we have discussed a lot of things. What's the best way forward in your estimation? Okay. Thank you. Retooling. Thank you. All right. So we talk about retooling. We're talking about researching what our constituents want, and then we adapt. Okay. Or because we know our numbers are low, we have to adapt to meet the market demands. All right. Thank you so much, Miss Black. No wonder you are my friend. Okay. And somebody online says, yes, retooling. Is there another gift, Doctor? We've given away everything? No, but I can give away a pen if somebody wants.
All right. So thank you very much. May I invite at this time Mrs. Julie Robertson to move the vote of thanks on our behalf.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure for me this afternoon to move the vote of thanks and to be part of this forum, which was very rich with information, guided by the theme, prioritizing tertiary education, preparing a modern workforce. on behalf of the Jamaica Teachers Association, I'm extending heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed panelists, Dr. Damian Black, Dr. Donna Powell Wilson, Dr. Tamika Benjamin, and Mr. Dean Palmer, our own. And also Mrs. Althea Heron, who operated from the online platform. You, our panelists, have whetted our appetite and have provided clarity on many issues that are affecting the tertiary sector. Let me thank our president for his insightful remarks and Dr. Mark Knightley, Secretary General, for his warm greeting and acknowledgement of the works and efforts of the Tertiary Committee. Sincere thanks to the Tertiary Committee chaired by Mrs. Leslie Thomas and the members, Dr. Junior Martin, Mrs. Sharon Mercy, Mr. Dean Palmer, and ably supervised by Dr. Margaret Chin. You have planned and facilitated a very necessary and relevant session today. Could you give them a round of applause? I think they deserve something better. Madam Chairperson, thank you for so ably managing this activity. Mr. Nash and Mr. Morrison, you have facilitated the communication both in the room and to the wider audience online. Thank you for your service today. Finally, by no means you, our participants, thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule. You could be otherwise occupied, but you chose to be here. Your presence and participation has been very engaging. And you have also given our panelists more food for thought and have provoked their research skills to go back and respond to your questions. Your presence has made this forum the success that it has been. Again, thank you all and God bless you as you leave us. You have to take off the mask because I'm on TV. The vote of thanker usually gets away without being thanked. So I thank you, Mrs. Robertson, for moving the vote of thanks at last minute. I want to acknowledge my team member, Tisha Martin, who is not here this afternoon to be with us. And just, Tisha, if you're watching, just to know that my prayers are with you and will keep you, in place. Thank you, Ms. Verona. Thank you for all the committee members. This was not about me. It was about the team that worked with me and Dr. Margaret Chin, who helped to put this all together. And again, the vote of thanks has been moved, but thanks to our President and Secretary General who really facilitated us. This is supposedly the last activity for the conference here, and we have closed it out well. So thank you all for coming. I invite you now to march to the third floor, where you will be fed by our able staff, who I thank very much for being patient with us as well. Thank you so much for coming. I wish you safe journeys back to the north, to the east, to the west, and to the south. And I'm going to ask you, please, if you did not sign the register when you came in this morning, yes, do before you leave. Thank you so much. Before we go to lunch for health and strength and daily food, we praise thy name, O Lord. Amen.